Religion has many victims, and these are the stories of how they survived. This episode contains detailed discussion of cult involvement, suicidal ideation, child abuse, stalking, and murder. Cassandra Blondheim's story is discussed in detail. Please take care of yourself as you listen. This episode may not be appropriate for all audiences. If you or someone you know is having suicidal thoughts or having extreme mental health crisis, please call the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline by calling 988. Welcome back to The Awakening, everyone. I'm your host, Heather.
And I'm your co host, Tamara, aka Jezebel.
And as always, we are over here having hard conversations about deconstructing from fundamental religious beliefs that cause emotional, mental, and severe trauma. So we are so grateful for the guest that we have with us today. Welcome in, honey. How are you doing this morning?
Thank
It's good to
you.
have
I'm doing
you.
good. Thank
Hi,
you. Thank you for
Azraela.
having me.
Thank you for joining us. And like I've said to you before, one voice may not make a difference. But when we join our voices together and we show religious spaces the harm that is caused, hopefully, eventually, things will change. So
Yes.
thank you for
Absolutely.
being with us.
We always say that over here at The Awakening, we are healing loudly together, one story at a time, because we could not do this without your stories. And we each have
Mhm.
something to share with one another that resonates with somebody else that's out there in the world that is currently struggling. So we are so grateful for everybody that comes onto our show and is willing to share their experience with us. So we always start off with asking people, what was your upbringing like? What kind of religious environment did you grow up in? Were you raised Christian?
Yes. Yes, I was brought up in a cult called Grace Cathedral Ministries. It's an acronym. It is a Pentecostal evangelical. And my dad was the one that joined. He was in Bible college at the time when he joined. And that's where he met my mom. That's where they got married. But not long after he dropped out and she dropped out with him. And maybe like I think a few years later they had me.
I was noticing in your questions, you said that you grew up homeless. Did you grow up
Yes.
homeless still in the church? And would you like to expand on how that was like being a part of a church community, but still feeling or writing that you grew up homeless?
Yeah. Yeah. When my dad joined, the church is in Akron, Ohio. We're from Southern Ohio. So it was a bit of like a travel to go up there a lot. But my dad was convinced that that was his church because he received a miracle. And that's the one thing on the pamphlets that they promise is miracles. And so my dad was sold on the idea that, you can get a miracle from God
Yeah.
through faith healing. And so that's what he did. And it was just that's my church,
Yep.
and that's going to be the family's church. Um, we still he wanted to be a missionary. He wanted to travel. He wanted to do a lot of stuff. He wanted to be a part of the ministry. So he was going around trying to preach wherever he could, be like a guest speaker. But when we were growing up, when they left college and then had me, my mom and dad were homeless at the time. Both my grandparents, I was told that we were kicked out of my grandma and grandpa's house on my dad's side. And so early childhood, I do remember being homeless. The first state that we went to was Florida. And we stayed in a little motel. My mom was making the bed, and that's when I had a TBI. I fell really hard. Ended up getting a skull fracture, but my parents were unaware of the severity of the damage. They never took me to the hospital. It
Oh,
was like
wow.
we didn't have any money. We didn't have any food. Like we had enough to just to scrape up to afford a shelter,
Yeah.
in place to stay. And they were looking for jobs at the time. My parents, I remember, would oftentimes go to other churches and offer my dad would offer services, like be like an assistant pastor, be a guest speaker, and
Yeah.
in return give us a place to stay. I actually remember sleeping in a church with my mom and dad that they were working on.
Wow. That's wild, though, that you guys, even though your dad was pastoring and stuff like that and preaching and teaching, that none of these churches thought to help you actually get in stable housing, to
Mm-mm.
where you guys actually had your needs met. Like there was a child in the home, right? So
Yeah,
you would think that all these people that claim to be pro life would be the first ones that would be showing up to take care of you guys,
yeah,
especially somebody that's preaching. Like, come
yeah.
on now, that's wild. So we always ask, when we are in these religious environments, we hear a lot of messaging about ourselves. So, what kind of messaging did you hear about yourselves in this Christian environment?
Like, what do you mean, like messaging?
Like, okay, so when I was being raised in the church, I heard that women aren't to speak or have authority over a man,
Oh,
messages like that. What kind of messages were you taught in the church that impacted you in a negative way? Maybe it was purity culture teachings or, original sin theology or whatever.
oh my gosh. There was a ton of stuff that they taught us. Like, there was a lot of indoctrination. Like, so the one thing that really struck me negatively, I was 25 years old. My husband had suffered a loss, our first child, and I was completely devastated. And I posted a picture. This is back in the MySpace days, and I posted a photo of Jesus holding a baby, and it said our baby went to church. And not long after, I got get phone calls that that picture needs to be taken down because we don't believe that. Because when a baby in the womb passes away, it doesn't have a soul because
Yeah.
they don't believe that babies have souls.
Yes.
The baby has to be taken out of the womb, the cord has to be cut, it has to draw its first breath, and that's when you get your soul.
Yes.
And that's what they taught us. And so I was told to quickly get over my grief and stop grieving over this baby because it was not necessary. It was time for me to move on. And soon after, I was being told very sternly that I was going to end up burning in hell
Wow.
um,
That
if
is
I
so horrible.
kept believing in what I wanted to believe was my baby went to heaven.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, you're going to hell for that.
Yes. And, I actually had seen an article not too long ago where these parents were trying to get a Catholic priest to baptize their stillborn baby because they wanted it to go to heaven, right? And
Mm-hmm.
Catholics also believe if a baby isn't baptized, it won't go to heaven. And of course, the Catholic Church refused because the baby had passed away and they only baptize what they call the living, which is interesting to me because these are the same people that, say that a fetus inside of you is, they consider it to be a whole living human being. So it doesn't make
Conception.
sense. Yes. So, it's so contradictory with what it is that they actually practice. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And it's
Yeah.
that type of hypocrisy, though, that causes so much harm to people because
Hmm.
that mental and emotional trauma of not being able to process the grief of losing a child is so severe. Like, and I've told this story before, but I lost two pregnancies before I was even 18 years old. And I was taught to spiritually bypass it. I wasn't allowed to think about it too much or talk about it because it made other people uncomfortable and they didn't know how to sit with those hard emotions, right? So they
Right.
always told me to just give it to God and pray about it and God will take care of everything. That was their answer for everything. Just give it to God.
Or
The only
maybe there
problem
was
is,
sin in your life
yeah,
and God took the baby because he knew it
yeah,
was going to cause you
yes,
hardships in the future. And I'm
yep,
like, how can you say that about a baby?
yeah,
Yeah.
I
yeah,
mean, I
And the
believed it when I was there.
yeah,
I believed that, there must be sin in my life. I was sick. There must be sin in my life. I have a sick baby. There must be sin
yes,
in my life. The baby was miscarried. And then I realized, now looking back, how harmful that rhetoric is to women. And the
absolutely.
fact that we are always told not to grieve,
Yes. Yes. We
not
are
to
not,
cry,
no
take it to
crying.
Jesus, leave it on the altar.
And the
The,
only
Yeah.
tears
who
that were
does care?
acceptable were the tears that were shed at the altar. That was
At
the
the altar.
only a place that we were allowed to express any type of emotion. And the only type of emotion that was acceptable at that altar was your tears or your laughter. That was
Yep.
it. Those were the only two things that were acceptable. If you, no anger ever whatsoever, we weren't allowed to express that emotion, feel it, anything. And I think about that so often because when you get mad and you don't process that, you don't feel it, you stuff all that inside of you. You literally turn into this ticking time bomb just waiting to ignite, right?
Right.
So
Hmm.
it's so unhealthy the way that these systems are set up in so many different ways.
Yeah.
So,
And the thing is too, Heather, because Azraela, Heather and I are in EMDR at the moment. I hope that's okay that I just
yeah, yeah,
said that.
that's
We
fine.
both are doing trauma therapy, right? And both of us have learned through trauma therapy that we weren't allowed. We have been so suppressed
Yes,
that total strangers, like when I get done with a therapy, we'll end it like 5 minutes early, and my therapist will look at me and say, "What are your plans for today?" And I'll tell her, well, I'm doing this, and then I'm going home. And she'll
yeah,
be like, good. And I finally asked her, I was like, why do you ask? She said, because you still have not allowed yourself to grieve and to be angry.
yeah,
Not completely. She goes, so you give me so much and then you hold back.
yep,
She goes, and when you leave here, anybody can trigger you. And I didn't realize that I would be like, oh no, I'm fine. And then
yeah.
I was in a car and somebody put their brakes on before me. And I was like, oh my God, that car almost lost their back bumper. And it was just because it wasn't because they did anything. It was because everything just came out the minute I
Yes.
had to slam my brake.
Yes. And
Mm,
it was the same way for me, like, because I was literally sitting there, talking to my therapist, and she said the same thing to me. She's like, you have never let yourself be angry, have you?
mm.
I was like, honey, I'm afraid. I'm afraid to let myself because I'm afraid I'm just going to burn everything to the ground,
Yeah. Yeah. I'm
Hmm.
like,
because
you see the
I
smiling
haven't known
for a
how to
reason?
control it. And she's like,
Yeah.
you have to allow yourself to feel these things. Like, and that's the reality of being raised in these high control spaces. You're cut off from your emotions to the point where you don't even know how to properly feel the things that you should be able to feel. She was asking me, last time I was there, where something was showing up in my body. And I didn't even know. Like, I literally looked at her like deer in the headlights. Like, I don't know where that's showing up in my body. And the reason is because I've just now started paying attention to my body. I never knew that all this trauma was stored inside of me somewhere. And the
Mhm.
only way to properly heal it is not to pray to Jesus. It's to get therapy. It's to get the help. It's to walk and talk through it, with a trained professional, not a Christian counselor, because
Hmm.
all of that does damage too. So
Yes.
it's a tricky journey. It really is. So
And
how long were
oh,
you in religious spaces? Were you in there until you grew up and got, older, or how did that work?
Well, I was 22 when I ran away. Now, I know some people are going to say, like, running away, you were an adult. I
Yeah.
wasn't allowed to drive. I wasn't allowed to have a job that my parents
Yeah.
didn't approve of.
Yep.
I wasn't allowed to
yeah.
date anybody. My parents, one big step that I took to rebel against my parents was just running away. I ran off with somebody
Wow.
and I just believed that if I was married to him, my parents couldn't control me anymore and I can
Yeah.
do what I want because I wanted to have a job. I wanted to go to college. I wanted to have education. Education was taken away from me. I wasn't allowed to have education.
Yeah.
That was one of the things growing up that we were raised to believe was, I was to be a wife, I was to be
Yep.
a prophetess, I was to have all
Yep.
these different positions, but it was never about what I wanted. It was never about what
Yeah.
kind of dreams I might have had for myself. It was always what my parents wanted. And so I I felt like I didn't have an identity. I didn't know who I was.
Yep.
And I was desperate to just get away from them because I wanted to just explore myself and learn about myself. another thing that we were raised to believe in our cult was you were talking about mental illness. Like mental illness in our church was demon possession.
Yes.
Yes.
I had mental illness so bad that I was suicidal growing up. And my first attempt was 14. I took a handful of sleeping pills. And I remember even walking out in front of the semi. I tried to step out in front of one and quickly jumped back when I was 17. I remember writing to the prophet telling him that I was struggling so bad that I couldn't take it anymore and I desperately needed some help. And if there was any resources or if there was anything that could help me, like I'm just desperate for help. I need
Yeah.
help. And he wrote me back, and it was a very shortened sentence. It was a very short sentence. It was just, "You are ushering your way to hell if you don't stop this. The only
Wow.
way to correct this is to get delivered of the demons that are inside of you."
Wow. That is so
And
evil. That is so
I,
evil.
yeah, I was diagnosed with bipolar type 2 with hypomanic episodes, borderline personality disorder, and I also have complex PTSD
Wow.
and generalized anxiety disorder and a TBI because my parents wouldn't let me
Yeah.
see a doctor to get an MRI. Like they were against me getting an MRI.
Wow. That is
And
so
I was
atrocious.
told that God already healed you of that, so you're fine. So why are you worried about it? And I was like,
Wow.
I'm not fine. I have a TBI and it affects my life. And
Yeah.
it greatly impacted it because, sometimes I read books and I can't even comprehend the sentences that I'm reading.
Yep.
Sometimes people are talking and it's just like I'm gathering in just fragmented information. And
Yeah.
I have a hard time just being able to speak to people. And it's hard sometimes. And it's like, that's not me being healed. But
No.
in our church, they would say things like, well, your faith isn't where it should be. So that's why you are the way you are. And you're
Yeah.
not fully letting God take over.
Do
And
you
like
know
it
how
was just
big?
so frustrating.
Or you're out of the will of God, or you have hidden sin in your life. Like they have all kinds of reasons why you don't get healed, you know?
Do you know what my
Yeah.
pastor did? He actually brought mustard seeds to the church and would make fun of us for not having more faith than a mustard seed
Oh my gosh.
from the
How
pulpit. Like,
wow.
like you don't believe
Wow.
in God? You don't believe that this can happen? What? You don't have more faith than a mustard seed?
Wow. And
It's
the
so
reality
disgusting.
is that, the people that believe this stuff, they do have more faith than a mustard seed, but they're putting it all in the wrong things. Like they're putting their faith in a God that is okay with stripping people of their rights. They're
Yeah.
Hmm.
putting their faith in a God that's okay with people being burnt forever in eternal torment. Like,
Hmm.
and when I look back on, just the things that I was taught to believe in my Christian family and home, it's like, how could we have ever believed that this God was good? Like one of the first stories in the Bible, he drowns everybody that he made because he didn't like the way they turned out. Like,
Hmm.
and people are like, "Oh, well, God's good." A genocidal maniac is not good in any
Yeah.
form whatsoever. Like,
And
there
Yeah.
is no justification for this stuff.
this is the other thing. I just want to make sure that I validate what she's saying about having difficulty speaking or articulating or saying, you're not the only one,
Yeah.
Azraela. Heather and I have struggled our whole life with being able to communicate more than an eighth grade level languages because
Yes.
we are taught that the only books we need to read are the Bible, that we
Yep.
don't need critical thinking. We don't need to
Yeah.
use those big words. If we used words that were like considered bigger than what our pastor could use, we were being haughty and proud, and our pride goes before a whatever it is,
The fall. Yep.
the fall, and that
Yeah.
we weren't allowed. If we used any words like exaggeration, if we used that word, we were trying to be better than other people, and that's not what you're supposed to do as a humble wife and a humble woman. You're
Yep.
not
Hmm.
to use big words. That's distracting.
Yep.
And then I realized when after you ran away, you got married, right? And
Hmm.
then there was DV involved.
Yes. Oh yes.
And do you want to you know talk about it
Oh,
and say what
yeah,
happened?
absolutely.
And okay.
Um, so my ex-husband um grew up in a refugee camp in Thailand. and came to America with his family. He had a very abusive life, like I did. I'd say he went through a lot worse because of the shelter that he was in. The Thai government would only give like a family his size, like one live chicken and one small bag of rice, and that lasted you a week.
Wow.
You had to get your own water. I there was parts of me that felt really sorry for him, but he just had so many anger issues, and I think a lot of it is because of how he was raised. His father, was like my father would beat you with a belt, would whip you. But his father would take like a needle and put it in the fire till it was glowing bright red, and he would try to pierce his ears with it.
Oh
And
my.
that was for like if you were late. Now in the Thai schools, if if they would like check your hands every morning and your fingernails, and they would have to do this, and if the fingernails or the hands were dirty, they would take the hands and they would slam it into the desk really hard.
Wow.
He had a rough upbringing, and there was parts of me that felt really sorry for him, but it started with criticism, it started with yelling, it started with just anger, just bickering with me, and then it started to become where he would just have a very wandering eye, just looking at other girls, adding girls on social media that he didn't know, getting girls' phone numbers. We started fighting a lot about it, and it turned into where my place, I wasn't allowed to have an opinion. I wasn't allowed to express me. Every time I wanted to try and have independence and go to school, he would just try and hold me back. And I started feeling like I'm back in my parents' house all over again
Yeah.
with the abuse, with I'm not allowed to do this, this, and this in someone's house, and then it just started feeling like my identity was just to be what someone else wanted. I'm just trying to make someone else. Um, he would always get very physical. He didn't respect my body. Um, he didn't respect if I wasn't in the mood to have sex. It was what he wanted on his
Yeah.
time, and he would push me right into it. There were times that I remember falling asleep and he had his phone out and he was recording me while I was sleeping, and he had his hands down my pants. There were times he recorded me while I was trying to take a shower. There were times that I would go through his phone, like it was like 3 months after I delivered my son. I found him texting a 15,
Oh no. That's horrible.
and we got into such a huge fight about it, and he still denied that he did anything wrong. He was just asking her about books. And I was like, at 2 in the morning, you're asking her about school books. You're in your 30s. You have no business texting a 15.
Yeah.
And he tried to gaslight me and make me sound crazy for saying that I was going to leave him. He ended up getting very physical one night. He found out he was having an affair with a coworker, and the night that he got really physical, he grabbed my son and he threw him into the closet
Oh
and
no.
hit the back of my son's head. And the thing was, my kid, he was 5 at the time, and he was grabbing onto his dad, off of me, saying, "Daddy, don't hurt mommy. Daddy, get off of mommy."
Oh no.
Because he had me up against the wall and he was like pushing his palm into my throat, and he was like, "Bitch, I'm gonna fucking kill you. I'm
Yeah.
gonna take you and your family, and they're gonna be 6 feet under."
Wow.
And all because I confronted him about the affair and said that I'm leaving you and I'm done with you. Like, I'm not your wife. Like, this is over.
Yeah.
And he got very physical. I called the police, and the first thing I said to the cop was, "I have my bags packed. I have my son with me. There's broken glass everywhere. I'm scared. I'm in fear of my life. I'm in fear of my son's life. Please get here. Don't have your sirens. Don't bang loudly. Don't draw attention. I just want to get out of here safely." The first thing they do is bang on the door.
Oh my God.
And then they draw attention and they get my husband out and they're talking to him. And the first thing I hear is, "So you guys are just having some marital problems?" Yeah,
Oh
okay.
my goodness.
My son's sitting on the couch, like in a catatonic state. He won't respond to anybody, and everybody starts taking notice that he's acting like out of character. Something's wrong with my kid. My kid's sitting on the couch going,
Wow.
like, just staring into nothing. And the officer gives him a teddy bear, and my son looks at it and looks at the officer and goes, Daddy tried to kill mommy.
Whoa.
The officer gets up and goes, you might want to get a lawyer.
Wow.
Smile on his face and everything.
To
That is
you,
so atrocious.
Yeah,
you may get a.
you might want to get a lawyer. I looked
Why
up
would,
at him and I went, I will.
yeah, that's crazy. Like, that's
So
absolutely
sorry.
crazy that the
I
cops were
have
there.
I have
Like,
defiance in me.
yeah, but they should have been on your side. Like, what in the heck? Even like, oh,
My
Lord have
ex-husband
mercy.
is he's a corrections officer, and he knows a lot of the police officers over
See,
there.
I hate
So
that. I
they're
hate that.
like, when we were going through a divorce, I had people following me in their cars. I had cops come over to the house. I had someone try to break in the back door of my mom and dad's apartment, because when I left my husband, I had nowhere else to go, so I had to move in with my parents. I moved in a small little bedroom with my son that was as big
Wow.
as a walk-in closet, and that's where I started over. And it was hard because, like, when I left the cult, I was 22 when I ran away. I was 29 when I officially left.
Yeah.
Because when I left, I felt like I broke a bond by going. So, like, my assistant pastor, his name is Brock Miller. Um, he was the assistant pastor to Reverend Angley. He was our cult leader. He's no longer with us anymore. He died in 2021, but Brock was his assistant pastor, and he was being molested by Reverend Angley. And he eventually admitted to all of this stuff later on, and it got all leaked out on the internet for everybody once he passed away. He was the first person I went to when I left the cult. And I just messaged him. I was like, you don't know me, but I know you. You are my former assistant pastor, and I just want to let you know I left, and I'm fucking scared. I'm scared shitless. I don't know what to do, but I got to get out of there because this place is dangerous, and it's not a safe place. I started thinking about my son, and it really started to hit me that when I left the cult, I wasn't just leaving an abusive system behind. I had to undo so much stuff. And then
Yes.
I left my husband, who was very abusive and so physical with me. And it was just like I had to process that I was assaulted so many times and I never talked about it with anybody. And then I
Yeah.
went through all of this indoctrination. Like, some of the things that you were asking me about, like the indoctrination that we went through, was like we had to have abortions and vasectomies. They sterilized the men when they became members of our church. And the reason why was because we were a doomsday cult. We didn't believe in having children, it was frowned down upon.
Oh
And we
my,
were
that's
against
horrible.
having, yeah, we were against having families. And Reverend Angley said it was a waste of time to bring children into the world. It was not God's will for us to have children because our time, energy, and money needed to go to the church. And
Wow.
so if you go to the Akron Beacon Journal and read the 6-part series, Falling from Grace, I think you have to pay like $1 for it. It talks about everything that went on in this church that we attended. My dad had the tapes, the books, the CDs. He had over 1,000 tapes. We
Wow.
listened to this man every day. We went to his church as much as we possibly could, on top of my dad's ministry and on top of the other churches that we went to. Like, my life, I was a preacher's kid. Like, my life was revolved around this place, and it was so empowering the first time that I spoke to him and said, I believe you, Brock, and I support you.
Yeah.
And I left, and I'm scared shitless, but I can't, hearing his story about that he was molested, and then finding out that there was trafficking going on by some of the employees. I can't have my son go there.
Oh, I don't,
I got to get
yeah.
out of there. I
Yeah.
can't go. Like,
Yep.
no, this, I was allowing so much stuff to happen. Like, I remember growing up and just being molested by family members. And the
Yeah.
one thing I was always told was, watch what you wear.
Yeah.
It was never remove that person from the home. It was never remove that person
Yep.
from my life. It was, watch how you dress,
Yes.
Make sure you wear a bra.
Yep. We
Don't wear
were
things that
raised,
are too flattering.
and this is what, a lot of people don't understand is that girls that are raised in these high control religious environments, we're taught that we are responsible if something like that happens to us. It's
Yes.
either because of how we were dressed or how we were behaving, or, we were putting ourselves out there in a way that tempted a grown man to prey upon us
Mhm.
as a child, right? And I hate
We would
that
be
messaging
told
because it's
to,
so disgusting. A child cannot, like,
yeah,
I don't care if that child is butt naked and trying to do whatever to you, okay? You're the
Yep.
adult. You're still
yeah,
responsible for shutting anything down, right? Like, I've never understood that logic.
yeah. We were taught that now my brothers didn't have to do it, but if it was me and my sister, we had to be completely dressed before we came out of our rooms.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That means whole Pentecostal shitload of
Yep.
stuff. But it all had to be done before we came out of our rooms because we were taught that men were born to lust after us, and that the only way to prevent that is to make sure we, you know,
Covered up.
abi- kept ourselves covered up and holy, you know?
Mhm. Yep.
And it's so sad that those kind of things, we sit here week after week, Heather, and just when we think, nah,
Yeah.
when we kind of like hit the plateau, maybe, we come back with another story of another denomination, of another person in the church that has like walked like horrific walks in life,
Yeah.
and nobody's listened to him. Nobody's heard him. Nobody's said,
And
I'm sorry. Nobody
no.
has. It's just like, well, too bad for you if you leave. Now
Yeah.
what? Let's watch what you do.
And the
Yeah.
reality is that, these
Right.
institutions create this culture for children to be abused on
Yeah.
a regular basis. And when we do walk away to speak our truth, then that's when they demonize us instead of the monsters that are hurting kids in the first place, you know?
God
And
forbid
it's
if you
so
take the kids
frustrating.
away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because then you really are demonized by the institution, because now you're breaking up a family, you're keeping your husband from his kids, like they call you every name in the book, but they never call out the man that was doing the
Yeah.
harm. They never
Yeah.
call out the man that was doing the abusing. And I think
Mm-mm.
about that with my own family because I'm no contact with my father, right? And there's so many of my family members are like, I just don't understand why you don't have anything to do with your dad. He's your dad. You only have one. And I'm
He's a
like,
good man.
yeah, but he's an abuser and he's been an abuser my entire life. So
Yeah.
what you're telling me to do is ignore that abuse and allow him to harm me just so I have him in my life. No, thank
Right.
you. I'm not
Nope.
willing to make that sacrifice. He has abused two
Right.
generations of kids in my family. I'm not going to allow him access to abuse a third. Like, only a fool would do that.
It really hit me hard. It really hit me hard. The
Yeah.
reality it just sunk in that I was when I saw the broken glass all over the floor and my kid sitting on the floor just sobbing his eyes out, and I just sat there and I just thought about my dad. When I was growing up, my dad had shock therapy
Yeah.
before he had me. He was criminally insane at the age of 17. So he was dangerous to be around. And he's talked about it before. He's talked about his past.
Yeah.
And he was hurt. And my dad has admitted to me that he knows he was my dad has admitted to me that he was a bad father. He told me he was a bad father. And that's the one thing that I can say about my father is that at least he took accountability for what he did,
Yeah.
for what he put me through. The
Yeah.
CPS was called on my house twice. My father was somebody that would go through withdrawal a lot. My
Yeah.
dad would grab doors and rip them off the hinges to go after my mother. I watched my father growing up when I was a 7-year-old girl, and I had to watch my dad make sure he didn't OD. I was taught to watch his breathing. I,
Wow.
I watched my father stab himself in the arm with a knife. I've watched my dad put his hand on a burner and just push it in as hard as he could, and I smelled his flesh, and I didn't know what the smell of burning flesh smelled like. I just thought he was burning a steak or something. I came downstairs and his hand was, and he just like turned and looked at me and he went, "Get your mother." And I remember sitting in the living room hearing him scream and cuss her out while she
Wow.
was trying to drop water and just trying to sizzle the water to loosen his hand off of it. And I was in the living room and I just started praying to the devil because every time I prayed to God, God wasn't
Didn't do
answering my
nothing.
prayers.
Yeah.
Like every night I prayed to God, take my dad away because I'm scared of my dad.
Yeah.
And we were told by Reverend Angley, who was he was a faith healer. He
Mm.
misdiagnosed people a lot. He was somebody that would go up to you and tell you, "Oh, you have cancer, you have this, you have that." But through the power of God, if I'm gonna lay hands on you, you are healed. And if your faith is where it should be, you're fine. And he told my dad the same thing, like he was going to be delivered of the mental illnesses and he was going to be better and he was going to, my dad came from the streets. My
Yeah.
dad was a really rough guy. He was, uh, I don't know if they call him a gangbanger anymore, but he got paid to
Yeah.
beat up gang members.
Yeah.
That was his life before he went to Bible college, before he tried to get his life together. He was still very unstable and he should have never had kids. He should have never gotten married. He should have just worked on himself.
Yeah.
I, you know,
And when you have somebody that's got severe, mental health problems like that, and you introduce them to religion, that is a recipe for disaster.
yes.
Because you already have a person that's struggling to be present in the reality that they're already in. And now you're presenting them with a reality that's so fictional, that's not even funny, but it gives them permission to believe in magical thinking, right? But magical thinking doesn't help anybody. It
Hmm.
has you trusting and believing that God will deliver you and heal you while you're
Yes.
just getting more and more broken by the system that you're in. I had
Yeah.
mental health issues. I wanted to unalive myself for 10 years straight, like suicidal thoughts on the daily. I would have 2 good days a month during that time. So you
Yeah.
got to think 2 good days out of 10 years, every month is not much time to actually, enjoy your life. And that
Yeah.
messaging in the church was the same way. It constantly had me believing that, I was going to be healed. And I truly believed that the more I did for God, the more I sacrificed of my time, the more I dug my heels in ministry, the more things I was involved in, the more closer I was getting to receiving that healing, right? So I did just that. I stretched myself so thin. I taught children's church. I drove the church van. I preached and I helped my husband, behind the scenes in the worship, like all the different things in the church.
Yeah.
But all that did is lead to my mind absolutely shattering. It never healed me. It broke
Mm-mm.
me to the point where I was completely broken. And I had to step away from that in order to heal from it.
Yeah.
Azraela, the church in Akron that you talk about, isn't that one of the first kind of mega churches that were, because that's a huge church, right?
Hmm. Yeah. It
It
was
was like
originally
one of the
owned by
fun.
oh, go ahead.
No, I was like, because I remember passing by that with a couple of restaurants in each side, and this church just being, I mean, huge. But it was
Yeah.
one of the first big mega churches, at least in Ohio, that was
Yep.
built. Like it was pre Hagee and
Yeah.
the other guys, Kenneth
Yep.
Copeland, Duplantis. Like this was one of the beginning, and it went through a bankruptcy, and it was going to get torn
Yep.
down.
It was originally owned by Rex Humbard. He was a
Yes, Rex
televangelist
Harbaugh.
and he
Okay.
preached at Elvis Presley's funeral. And
Hmm.
he
Okay.
was building the Cathedral of Tomorrow, which
Mm.
Yes,
was the Grace Cathedral. And that big tower was supposed to have a rotating restaurant on top, and he never had a chance to finish it.
exactly.
Ah,
And it
Yep.
had
how
a fountain in
fascinating.
it. I mean, there was like,
Yeah. It
I
was
don't
supposed
know
to be a
if it's
blood fountain
still.
too.
Yeah, right. See, I know because I when I married my first husband, I moved to Akron, Ohio. So that's how her and I became connected. She was like, Akron, Ohio, a cathedral. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about. So I was
Listen,
just making
Yeah.
sure that it was a
yeah.
mega church, Heather. It wasn't like, just this backwoodsy church either. This was a
Yeah.
huge mega
Yeah.
church. And then when you left after your parents and after you've done all that at 29, how hard was it for you to get yourself together? How did you do it? What did you do? I know these are things that are sometimes difficult for us to talk to, but there are so many women out there that look at our podcast
And they're
And
like,
see,
I left,
we've
now
done
what?
it.
Right? Like,
Right.
but what do I do? What do I do when I
What
leave
did you
this
do?
high control religious environment? What do I do when my whole family still believes this, right?
Yeah, we
So
don't
that's why we
read, we
like
can't
asking people that.
write.
And none of our processes look the same. My
No.
deconstruction looks so different from Jezebel's, okay? And other
Mm-hmm.
people that we've had on this show, everybody's journey is different. But I like people sharing their journey because it lets other people know that there's no right or wrong way to do deconstruction. We all do it on our own way. Some of us deconstruct into another faith before we're ready to walk away. Others of us just completely walk away, don't think about it again. Others of us dig in so much that we start podcasts and start talking about the harm, you
But
know?
you know,
Yeah.
one thing that I have noticed that all of our journeys are different. But
Yes.
every woman that comes on here leaves the high controlled religion, has no education.
Yep.
Usually
Mm-hmm.
are single mamas with babies hanging on their ankles. Usually
Yep.
have a life in front of them with no community, no help, no
Yep.
family, no people who are going to step in. We find once we get into college that our reading and writing skills are not appropriate and are not at college level. We realize our critical thinking skills are not even there.
Yeah.
So
Very.
we are so behind
Yep.
the curve of anyone just entering college that for me, I had to take a lot of pre-classes. I had to absorb a lot of critical thinking classes. I had to join a lot of groups that were going to challenge,
Yeah.
like film and critics, like to critique movies because I've never seen a movie before. I didn't know how to critique a movie. I just knew how to cry or laugh.
Yeah.
But then when I actually started learning, I realized that critiquing a movie was a really easy and a fun way for me to gather critical thinking skills and to think outside my box and to look at worlds and different places in a different light from where I'm at. So that's what I'm talking about with all of us women. We usually have those one and men as well. However, I find men that have deconstructed have a little easier time with jobs and schooling and going that sort of places. But tell us a little
Absolutely.
bit about what happened and how did you go about it? And for anybody
Um,
else listening,
when I was 29 when I felt like I fully like left the church for good because it was starting it really disturbed me hearing about Brock's story. Um, who was my assistant pastor, but there was a girl that was killed there because she's also somebody I wanted to mention in this podcast. Her name was Cassandra Blondheim. She was 15 years old. She went to my church. She was being stalked and harassed by a man named Shane. He was 27 years old. Shane was eventually kicked out after several pleas from Cassandra that he was bothering her a lot and obscenely bothering her. Reverend Angley eventually kicked him out, but through some kind of Reverend Angley is also a counselor, and he does like prayers for people and helps heal them of things, deliver them. And so he counseled Shane, and he said through the power of God, Shane is healed, and Shane is now no longer a threat to Cassandra, so he can return back to church.
Oh, wow. What a freaking terrible thing to do.
Cassandra and Shane were working at the there was a restaurant at Grace Cathedral. It's Grace Cathedral Buffet, and that's where they were working. He went up behind her and was trying to say like behind you or something, and her friend was like, "Oh, Shane's behind you," and she was just like, "I'd rather not turn around." Like she didn't want to like engage with him at all. He got angry and he took a stiletto knife and he stabbed her in like he came up around her and stabbed her in the chest, and
Oh,
then he threw her down on the ground and held her hands over her head and started stabbing her in the throat. And then he took off. And he said, "If I can't have her, no one can."
wow. That is so
She eventually
awful.
died in the hospital. He was in jail. The thing about her death, though, is that the families pleaded with Reverend Angley not to make a spectacle out of her funeral, that they didn't want reporters there or anything. Reverend Angley allowed reporters in.
Wow.
People were coming in and making a spectacle. She was just 15 years old.
Wow. how evil. Like the whole story is evil from top to bottom. Like, how do you literally declare that somebody is healed of something that is violent like that, right?
Yeah.
Stalking is a very serious thing. Like, we know what that leads to. So, for him to even say that that young man was healed is so egregious because you have no way to back that, prove that, whatever.
No.
And again, you're allowing this dangerous person to have access to his victim. Like,
Yep.
that is insane to me.
He was
My
allowed back in the
gosh.
church while he was on
Whoa.
I believe while he was on trial, he was allowed back.
No, that is messed up.
Yeah.
Even after he committed the
Oh,
act, he was allowed in to come to church while that was happening
wow.
That
with the
was in the
family.
report.
With the
The
family
Yep.
that's there, the family had to come and look at.
See, the family, I don't know what the family was doing at the time, like, because according to the report, they were trying to get like settlement out of it because the
Yeah.
whole thing was
Yeah,
like
Oh,
he was
yeah.
responsible for her death.
You would have a
right.
And
wrongful death suit against that church right there.
yeah.
Absolutely. They,
And
yes.
he did end up having to pay a lot of money. He was responsible for a lot of controversies that ended up in court settlements. And we're talking like there was one with exploitation where his workers were not making any money or they were making very little. They weren't paid at all, but a lot of them were volunteering, and he
Yes.
owed like over $390,000, I think. I
Yep.
mean, his net worth is 15 million. He's up there with Kenneth
Oh,
Copeland
yeah.
and TD Jakes and
A
Joel
lot
Osteen.
of these megachurch pastors, they honestly keep their churches afloat off of the free labor of the people that are there. Like,
Hmm.
because even college universities, they actually have programs for the kids that are there to where, oh, you can volunteer so many hours a week, and then you can get a discount on your tuition or your housing
Yeah.
or whatever. In other colleges, they actually make their students sign an NDA before they volunteer. And it's typically for second year students. They don't do it with first year students because first year students don't volunteer.
They
So,
bet
second, yes,
them.
but second year students have to sign an NDA. And the reason is because they don't want kids talking about what goes on behind closed doors. No church business is spoken outside, right?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
you get to see all the behind the scenes stuff when you're volunteering, but that's all the stuff that they don't want the general public to know, like
Yep.
how
Yeah.
they're setting up a full bar behind the stage for the speakers at the conference that are there that weekend for the Christian conference. And but behind that stage is a whole room with a fully stocked bar with their favorite liquors and cigars. And that's what the NDA protects is all their secrets because the pastors will preach holiness and then go exit stage left and then go behind scenes and engage in whatever debauchery they want to, you know?
Yeah.
But it is that is such a messed up story. Like
So
I
did
just
he
can't
wind
believe.
up getting prison time?
Yeah.
Hopefully,
Yeah.
pray to
He
God,
almost got out.
life.
He almost got parole too, and everybody signed a petition to keep him back in there. Yeah.
Thank goodness for that. My
Yeah.
gosh.
Because
Whoa.
usually the church is the first one to show up at parole
Oh
hearings
yeah.
saying,
Oh
he's a
yeah.
good, godly man.
Yeah.
He just made a mistake. He's learned from it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not counting the harm that that does to the other young girls in that church.
But if that wouldn't
And
spark
it
somebody's deconstruction, what the hell would? Like, my God, how could you see something that evil play out before you and be like, yep, this is right. I'm going to keep going to church here. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Heather,
yeah,
he's still a
whoa.
MAGA preacher, and he still
Yeah.
has a
it
lot of
messed
preacher
with
in
me.
his
It's a
church.
cult. It's
It
because
messed
it's a
with me
cult.
so bad.
Yeah.
It scared me. It was like the more stories that came out about the church with not just like the abortions and vasectomies, the exploitation of workers, taking advantage of elderly people and their money.
Yeah.
He's been constantly accused of running a cult by several members who have left. He was responsible for molestation. He wanted to examine genitals after people had their
Wow.
sterilizations.
That's
He,
insane.
I remember he went to Africa, or no, he went to Guyana, South, I think it's pronounced Guyana, South America, and he told
Yeah.
the congregation there, you don't have to take your HIV or AIDS medication anymore because the power of God has already healed all of you.
Whoa. No, you
Yeah,
cannot make claims
no.
like that. Wow.
But
Just
then I found out he was involved, like, his employees were involved in trafficking, and they were running I think they were investigating like 16 massage parlors.
Wow.
And when I read the the whole like interview between Brock Miller and Reverend Angley, like the whole story between them was that Reverend Angley wanted to give Brock special massages
Yeah.
and was taking advantage of him. Like he appointed him pastor at the age of 17. So I think right there was the start of him possibly being
Oh,
groomed or
yes,
something.
absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
he's a really attractive kid. He was a good looking kid, and he got married. And like he seemed like his life was going great for him. Like I thought things in his life were going great. My dad spoke so highly and was like, "Yeah, they had a big wedding bash. He just got appointed at the age of 17. Like we're so proud of him. God's really going to move in his life." And my dad's like, "Ariel, one day you're going to get married and you're going to be a pastor's wife, and maybe if the Lord tarries and lets you have children, maybe you can have children." And
Yes.
I'm just like, I thought we
Yes.
weren't supposed to have kids, you know. I don't know, like it was really weird. And my dad was just like, yeah, he's really moving in his life. And then when the story came out that he was being molested, all of a sudden my dad's like, he's full of the devil. And
Yeah.
I'm just like, Dad, I want to hear a story, because that's a serious accusation, especially after
Yes.
Cassandra, one of our church members was just killed. Like
Yeah.
this is a serious accusation. We need to take this seriously. And then the whole story about the trafficking going on, like that made me so sick to my stomach. When
Absolutely.
these stories just the more that Reverend Angeli's stories came out, and the more people I've heard getting hurt because of him, or the stuff that he was doing in other countries to other people. He was saying, like, don't take your medication anymore, or I can detect witches. That was another thing. He claims he
Yeah.
can detect witches. And he was in Africa, and I remember watching his crusade there, because we watched his stuff all the time.
Oh,
Every
yeah.
day was church in our house.
Yep.
And I remember there was a woman on his stage screaming and like convulsing and doing this, and he was like, "In the name of Jesus, I command you to come out, in the name of Jesus, and cast this demon of witchcraft out of this woman." And he said, "This is a witch. She's a witch. Get her
Wow.
out of here. She's trying to absorb the demons that we're casting out. She's trying to absorb them so she can take them and use them for her
Wow. That
power."
is so
And
crazy.
he said, he's like, let me just tell the congregation right now, I have no room for witches in this congregation. I have no space for you. You are not welcome here. And God will seek you out, and he will tell me you were
Why is
here, and
it?
I will not tolerate you.
I always
I,
Greg,
find it fascinating that the most evil preachers are always hung up on witches. They
yeah, Greg,
always are.
what's Greg's
I
last name?
bought a book of
Greg, what's your
witchcraft.
jiggy?
I bought a book of witchcraft when I was 18 or 19 years old. I bought a book of elemental magic, and I brought it up on his stage, and I chanted incantations because I wanted to see. I tested this theory to see if he would really call me out, and I was ready for it. I was ready for it to
You know what?
happen.
My parents, they used to demonize the Ouija board,
You
right? And
you
they would
part
say that
you part of our
yeah,
tribe.
they said if you even touched one, you were going to go right to hell. Well, I went to stay at a friend's house, from high school, and my parents didn't know a whole lot about her family, but she had a Ouija board and we played with one, and I thought it was so cool. And I thought for sure I was going to go to hell because I played with that Ouija board, but nothing ever happened to
Yeah.
We did the
me.
one that you did the hand holding and you called Miss Mary.
Yes, yes. Oh,
Oh,
yes.
what is it? Oh my God. And my brothers heard us, right? So they went behind in our bedroom where the bedrooms, and all of us girls were in church and we were holding hands trying to call whatever that chant was. It was like a really stupid one. And then my brothers were outside the room and they started talking like a girl, like, "Oh, I'm here." And we were so freaked out because we're Pentecostal girls. We all started screaming and speaking in tongues, rebuking the devil, calling it out, saying, "We're sorry, Jesus." My brother goes, "It's okay, you're forgiven," as if he was God. And then we stopped, like, wait a minute, what just happened? But yeah, it's always witches. Greg Locke,
Yes,
he's
yes,
all about witches.
he
Waffle
is.
House witches.
Yes.
Oh my God. If you like, anytime you hear him, it's like, get the witches out of here.
Yes, and I actually
Yep.
heard a younger woman that was preaching against witches. I saw a video clip of her just a few days ago, and she was talking about we need to bring back burning witches at the stake again.
Mm.
And I was like,
Dude.
So y'all are already starting to promote literally burning women alive again. This is how far away from the gospel of Jesus you have become, that you are okay with preaching a gospel of setting women on fire.
Was that the
Yeah.
same woman who said that the reason why the witches were burned was because they were having women do abortions? Was that the same video?
I don't know. She's a
Okay.
woman that has an accent. I think she's from South Africa or something like
She,
that.
there was a woman in Turning Point doing a
Yeah.
Turning Point a thing, and she's like, the women were not burned at the stake because they were witches. They were burned because they were killing unborn babies and they were doing live abortions.
Yeah.
That is what witches are. And I'm like, what is this woman talking about?
Lies, because that's what Christians do. They lie to sell the story, they
They
lie to
do.
sell the fear. So, as we are like, we're getting to wind down here, we always like to ask, if somebody is just now starting to deconstruct from their fundamental beliefs, what kind of advice would you offer them? It's not an easy process. We know this, but what would you say to somebody that's just getting started and don't know what to do or, where to go?
Would I be allowed to share my story about deconstruction?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Go.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
When I left my husband and I left the call, I didn't really have time to deconstruct. I was just kind of in between. Like I was going to court for domestic violence. I was in the middle of I got a restraining order against my husband because of the domestic violence and stuff that went on. And I was also in the middle of just in between, like I was sleeping on a mattress on the floor with my son when I first started out. Moving back in with my parents was really hard because they were still very devout to this cult.
Yeah.
And before I even knew it was a cult, I just knew it was a very controlling group and I just didn't like it and I didn't agree with it. And I didn't know how to explain to my parents that I just didn't believe what they believed in anymore. It just
Yeah.
didn't do anything for me. I was watching YouTube videos of atheists and anti-theists doing Bible studies and criticizing the Bible. And that was the very first my very first time being exposed to hearing very refreshing comments about Christianity and about organized religions and very high control groups and how
Yeah.
they damage women in such ways that they don't realize, like, how it's normal for us to say, well, instead of if this person's touching you, well, watch what you wear,
Yes.
like that, the things that we were being taught, like that was a major part of deconstruction. Wasn't just running from like leaving a
Mm-mm.
religion behind. It was also just deconstructing from the things that I thought were okay,
Yeah.
that
Yes.
I thought was okay, was like allow like the being afraid of men all the time, like because growing up
Yes.
I thought men just rape and hit women because that's all I've ever known.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know any better. So when I was in the middle of deconstructing, I was very hyper vigilant, very paranoid. And here I am. I was going to school. I was working a lot. I was just picking up jobs wherever I could. There was times that I didn't have a car, so I was walking to work in like 20-degree weather wearing two hoodies. And I remember, having to come home and deal with my parents who wanted me to like pray and like I just want to pray with you and I feel like God was going to move in your life and help you find a man, and I'm like, will you stop praying for me? I don't want to find a man. I don't want anybody. I just want to focus on getting my son out of this situation that I was
Yeah.
in. My ex-husband was threatening to take my son back, and it was a time where I didn't have time to worry about myself. Now I have to worry about my son being taken out of the country and I'll probably never see him again. And it scared the daylights out of me because I thought I was going to lose my child. He'll take him back to Thailand and I'll never see my child ever again. And I had to get a restraining order and hold my child away from him and tell the police, like, listen, I'm in fear of my life. I'm in fear of what he'll do. Like, he'll take my child away. And they just kept laughing in my face. They wouldn't listen to me. And at the same time, I was working a full-time, like working two jobs
Yeah.
and going to school. And when I finally went to divorce court and everything was over and I started making a little bit of money, I started like writing a list of everything that I wanted for myself. And it's like I started to work really hard at trying to just like get my insurance and, get my son's insurance. And the very last thing I wanted to do was start going to therapy, because in my cult, therapy and medicine was frowned down upon. You weren't allowed to get
Yeah.
therapy, you weren't allowed to get medication because you were playing with the devil. And I noticed my son was having the same behavior as my ex-husband, was also becoming a little like he started showing signs of anger. And I was like, if I don't break this cycle, if I don't break the cycle,
Yeah.
it's going to continue with him, and he's innocent and he doesn't deserve this. So it was the hardest thing I ever had to do, was leave my husband. And it's not just leaving a cult, but leaving my husband and having to run away and having to start over all over again.
But you did that, Mama. You did
Mm-hmm,
that. Like, you are so freaking brave, because it takes so much courage to pack up and move on without knowing what to do, where you're going to go, where you're going to
yeah,
land. But you freaking did that. And
yeah,
you protected your child
yeah.
because you knew what you had to do and you did it. That is
Mm-hmm,
so incredible. Like, I am so freaking proud of you, because I know how much courage that takes, especially coming from the environment that you were raised in, being taught
mm-hmm,
you were powerless and incapable. And now here
yeah,
you are finding yourself to be all the things that they told you you weren't supposed to be in order to
yeah.
just survive. And that's incredible.
Did you how is your son today? How are you, where are you at on your journey? And we often say here that heaven and hell, Heather, that those were easy things for us to overcome and get rid of. It was the constant indoctrination, how we dressed, how we looked, how we conducted ourselves, what we did. It was those indoctrinated moments. Our children are going to grow up and be like what we raised them in.
Yeah.
I
Mm-hmm,
get it. I get it. And sometimes people told me, a therapist told me once, is that everybody needs something that becomes their motivation and what motivates them to carry on.
Yeah.
And for me, the motivation became my three babies because I knew I could not fail.
mm-hmm,
Yeah.
There wasn't going to be an option. There was no fallback. If I didn't get
yeah.
it right each step of my way,
Yeah.
I there was nothing that was going to save me. My parents promised they would take my babies from me. So I knew, oh,
That's my fiance.
somebody does get a kissy kiss. Hi, fiance. Sorry. So now what? You're 20 years. How many years out are you?
I've been out. I was 29 when I left officially. I'm 42 now.
Well, dang, you look great for
So
42.
school,
Well, thank you.
right? Right? School, how school did you be, were you able to go and finish? Were you able to
Yeah,
do what needed to be done? Did
That's
you find
yeah,
incredible.
therapy for your son?
yeah. I
Let's celebrate you now. What things have you done and over and say, I did this.
Yeah.
well, the first thing I did was I started writing a list of all the things that I wanted to do, all the things that I wanted to accomplish. Um, because I was always told that if it wasn't for me, you wouldn't have had X, Y, and Z. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was like, I wanted to build education and career for myself and have a really good workmanship, because I didn't have any of that growing up. I didn't have any
Yeah.
experience. I wasn't allowed to go to
Mm-hmm.
college. Like my parents refused to let me go anywhere. I had to ask permission to leave the house. I wasn't allowed to drive. So you'd imagine, even when I ran away to New York City with my husband, I still didn't have any job experience. And I
Mm-hmm.
still didn't, nobody wanted to hire me because of my lack of experience.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I went to a Christian school. So I had to go back and get my GED. And then I went to school to be an aide, a state tested nursing assistant. I worked two jobs as a nanny. I worked as a nanny for two homes, sometimes walk to work. Um, And then I started delving into deconstructing from Christianity, watching YouTube videos on the side, and doing Bible studies with atheists. That really helped.
Yeah.
Yeah, helped me like deconstruct. But I started getting into therapy and medication when I got into paganism, because I started learning about shadow work, and it was
Yeah.
like something that Jezebel to me about
Hmm.
was understanding like your shadow self, understanding like sometimes
Yes.
you have to look at yourself and see your own flaws and your faults and work on yourself, taking accountability. Like I felt like Christianity never taught me to take accountability,
No. No.
Mm-mm.
and I
Mm-mm.
wanted to, I knew I needed to be a better person if I wanted to raise my son right, because I can't just walk away from this and be like, okay, I'm just gonna, deconstruct and things will be better. I need to go to therapy so I can be a better parent, so I
Yes.
can break that cycle with my son, so that one of us is a stable parent that he can talk to, and that he can, I need to set that example for him. That's more important to me, because I don't want to see my child have to be another another angry man.
A
Yes.
statistic.
Mm-hmm.
They say that the abusers, children that are raised by abusers, if they saw it one time, statistically, they have the potential of doing that. Like you
Yeah.
Yeah.
have to totally eradicate your life to make sure that you don't raise angry boys to become angry men
Yeah.
and daughters who take it,
Yeah.
you know? So
Because
yeah,
yeah.
it's a lot of work. So what do you do now? Can you share? What did you
Yeah.
graduate from? What did you do?
I worked as an STNA. I worked at a few nursing homes. It was rough because I worked night shift and I was taking care of my son and going through divorce court, and then I got divorced, and then I started belly dancing.
Oh,
I
how
started I started
cool.
because I I dancing was forbidden in my cult, and
Right.
when I learned, I was kind of delving into my heritage, and I learned that I have Lebanese and Turkish
Oh,
Iranian
neat.
roots, and I was like,
Fascinating.
I want to be a belly dancer. I want to learn how to belly dance. I want to learn more about the culture. I wanted to
Yeah.
learn more about where I came from, and you know, I was in this cult for so many years, and now I'm like indulging in like another culture that
Yeah.
is all about food and dance and just,
Having
and
fun?
yeah, it's just learning more about my ancestry and getting in touch
Hmm.
with, it's like there was
Using
just
the
such a bigger
live,
world
laugh,
out there.
love
There's just so
stage.
much more out there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do
And
you teach? I would love to learn.
do I, oh, well, I go to a teacher. I go to her. Like I thought about teaching though. I
Yeah.
thought about it.
It's so
But
cool. I love that.
Let's do a deconstructing group with belly dancing for us high
yeah,
controlled women.
that'd be
We're gonna
fun.
teach you how to be free.
But
Shake them hips.
I worked at two hospitals, and I worked on the COVID. This was when COVID hit, and I worked
Yeah.
at two hospitals, and I worked ER, med surg, ICU. I worked in psychiatric, and then I went back to school to be a medical assistant,
How
and
neat.
then I worked for two nurse practitioners, and I ended up working for a doctor, and then I ended up uh, running into somebody and being I can't remember what's the word. They were trying to recruiting. They were trying to recruit people
Ah,
to become medical record indexers for the
mm.
military. So now I handle medical records for people in the army, and I help
Oh,
veterans
cool.
get benefits for disability that they have difficulty applying
That is
for.
such a noble profession. Like,
Yeah,
really, that is incredible. Like,
yeah.
and I
And you have
love,
a
yeah.
fiance, so that must be fantastic. How's your son doing now? Did you put him into therapy? Because I know our listeners want to know what you did and how you did
Oh
it.
yes, oh yes.
Yes.
My son still, he deals with depression. He deals
Yes.
with
Yeah.
anxiety. There's been a couple of times that he's admitted that he felt like wanting to harm himself. The thing that I do is I talk to my son all the time. Like
Yes.
even when he doesn't like, I'll come in his room and I'll go, "Hey, how's it going, kiddo?" And I'll sit on his bed and I'll go, "What's up? Tell
Yep.
me everything.
Yep.
Tell me everything." Like I'll take him for walks. There's a pizza shop down the street. And we'll go out for pizza and ice cream, and then I'll try to like, so do you still have feelings of wanting to harm yourself sometimes? And they go,
Yeah.
yeah, but not all the time. And I go, I used to feel that way too when I was growing I had a really hard time growing up, and I know exactly what you're dealing
I think
with.
those of us mamas who have had to face leaving these kind of situations, we approached our children
So
so
differently. Yes.
different.
Yeah.
Snap. That's why we're sisters. We finish each
Yeah.
other's sentences and thoughts. But completely, we raised them so differently.
Yeah.
Not saying that we were perfect, because Heather and I will tell you that both all of our kiddos have struggled.
Yes. No perfection here.
No perfection.
Deconstruction,
None.
like my kids were like middle school, high school age when we left the church, right? So they
Hmm.
had already had
Yeah.
a significant amount of
Hmm.
indoctrination. But we were open and honest with them about every stage of deconstruction, the questions that we were having, the information that we were learning, because we wanted them to know that it was okay for them to ask questions about the things that they had been taught too. And if
Right.
Mhm.
they didn't want to believe this stuff anymore, they weren't required to. Like, I'll be honest with you, I was the only one in my family, my immediate family, between my husband and children, that held on to belief the longest. Everybody else walked away from the church and they were like, F this, I'm done. Like,
Done.
Yeah.
just completely done, wash my hands of it, never think of it again. My husband, he could care less to talk about it, right? But
Hmm.
for me, the harm, I couldn't just walk away from the harm. I couldn't stay silent being aware of the harm. It's like I felt like I had a responsibility for making people aware of it, of helping
Hmm.
unravel all these threads, to help pull other people out of it, because there are people that I love that are deeply harmed by these beliefs, right?
Yeah.
And they're victims. But not only are they victims, they're harmful victims, because they
Yes.
don't realize that they're a weapon too to other people, and they are causing harm to others. So I think the more that we can talk about this, the better off it is. And it's
Hmm.
Yeah.
okay to deconstruct with your children. And it's okay to be honest with your children about your doubts,
Yes.
your fears, your questions, because the reality is you're giving them permission to ask questions too when things don't feel
Yeah.
right, when they don't sound right, when it doesn't resonate with them. And I
Mhm.
think that's so important, because when we are in high control religious spaces, it's the first thing they tell us is you're not allowed to question anything. How
Right.
Hmm.
dare you question God? How dare you question the man of authority, you know?
Yep.
So I love that you are walking this journey alongside your son. And even though your son is struggling, you're like, hey, bud, it's okay. I'm right here.
Yeah.
I'm always going to be here, no matter what that struggle looks like, no matter what that pain is, no matter what you're going through. And
Yep.
for so many of us, we had parents that weren't like that.
No.
Their showing up was conditional based on whether we believed the same things that they did and we had the same lifestyle that they did. And I'm so grateful that parents are waking up and they're
Yeah.
showing up for their kids in a healthier way than
Hmm.
we had shown up for us, you know?
And
Yeah.
sometimes it means no contact with the parents who have done us harm.
Yeah.
And
Oh yeah.
that is okay.
And that is
I've
okay.
gone no contact with them before, definitely.
Yep.
Yes, it is perfectly okay. I think we don't normalize this kind of things
Yeah.
enough, that no contact
Is
is
okay.
okay.
It's
And if
It
healthy.
you
is.
and if you're no contact, there are women in the deconstructing community. You're looking at two faces right now who will support you and hold your hand.
Yep.
We don't tell you you need to forgive. We don't tell you
Mm.
you need to forget. We don't tell you need to forgive yourself.
Yeah. You don't.
No,
Yeah.
You just need to walk your journey, however that takes you.
you
But
do
there
need to
is
love yourself.
no requirements, like
Yep.
no requirements. And again, I am so grateful for these conversations, because
So thankful.
cutting off harmful people is how we protect ourselves.
Hmm.
And so many of us were taught that, you were to honor your father and mother. Well, sometimes we honor them best by allowing them no more access to cause us harm. Because
Mhm.
if we are allowing them to harm us, then that causes more ill feelings towards them, right? It causes more problems in the entire family unit. So I am honoring my father best by not allowing him access to continue harming people in my family. And I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful that I was able to make that decision and have peace with it, because I was raised that you don't do that, you know?
Yeah.
Hmm.
And I want people to know that it is okay Because the
Yeah.
reality is that if you had a parent that was abusive, then you didn't really have a parent in the first place. You just had an abuser that wore the
Yep.
label of parent, and you deserve
Yep.
better than that.
Yeah.
So I just want to say thank you so much for, coming onto our show today, sharing your story with us, because I know it takes a lot of courage to do this. And your story is wow, like just incredible, heartbreaking, but so empowering because you had a baby and you had no idea how you were going to make it work all by yourself. But you freaking did the dang thing. And not only did you do it, you made that thing your boss, honey. Like you totally owned it because you had two jobs. You were going to school, you were caring for your kid, you were going to court, like doing all these things. And I am so dang proud of you. And
Thank you.
if anything, I would love for other people to know that you are capable of doing this too. They told you you weren't strong enough. They told you that you weren't capable. They told you that you couldn't step out on your own. But honey, Ariel has proved to us here today that you can do anything if you put your mind to it. So thank you
Absolutely.
again for being here with us. And to our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, please hit that subscribe button, like this episode, so you can catch us back here again next week with more stories of healing and survival.
And Azraela, your story is so empowering and so personal for me because I see somebody, 10 years younger than me, Heather, who
Yes,
kind of did what I did.
exactly.
And
It is.
to see that there's other women out there that understand how hard it is to do what we've done. Yet we're going to pull our shoulders back and we're going to hold our head high. And we are not going to allow our lives to be a life of shame and being shunned. That we are going to speak our truths to power. And we're going
Absolutely.
to do it with all the dignity and grace that we can possibly mustered up and
Yeah,
continue the fight of the harm that religious spaces cause and to show that life trauma may have molded us. Trauma may have made us who we are today. Trauma may have made the triggers in my life that I respond to, but trauma doesn't own me today.
and it doesn't call the
I am on
shots.
the other
Yep.
side,
Yeah.
learning how to live the rest of my life
Yeah.
as a badass bitch.
Yeah, you got it. I actually posted a video this morning, and the text above, said women aren't supposed to lead. And I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, honey. I didn't know I was asking for your permission."
Permission.
I'm not asking for
Right.
permission. I'm just going to do it.
And it's like
Yep.
when we don't have to ask permission anymore to breathe, and
Yeah.
we don't have to ask permission anymore to live,
Yeah.
life becomes a different color.
Yes,
It just
absolutely.
opens up and becomes completely different.
And it's
And
such a
it's
beautiful
so
life.
beautiful.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is. It
Yeah.
is. And I say yes. Yeah, I went through trauma.
Yep.
Yeah, I may mark off 9 out of 10 of the ACE scores,
Yeah.
but that's not who I am.
Exactly.
Who
Yep.
I am is somebody who can look at trauma in the face and say, "You don't own me.
Yep. I
You don't own
overcame
me."
you. You did not take me out. And that's what I think about.
Yes.
For 10 years, I had suicidal thoughts
Mm-hmm.
and that tried to take me out. And it's like, it didn't succeed. Everything that has tried to take me
Right.
out has failed every single time. And I'm so damn grateful for that. Because if
Yes.
not for that, I wouldn't get to sit down with really badass women like you and hear these incredible stories about how we are far more capable than religion ever
Yes.
gave us credit for. So thank you again for being here with
Thank
us
you.
today.
Thank
I
you.
love you
Thank
Thank
so
you.
you.
stinking much.
Thank you guys
And
for having me.
you're welcome. And I would love to say that it will all be better.
Yeah.
That doesn't
Yeah.
always happen.
Yeah.
Some days are going to be like you just left.
Yep.
Yep.
Some days are going to feel like you on top of the world and nobody can bring you down.
Yep.
But the point that you always need to remember is that you may always be healing, but
Yep.
now you can replace those memories with other things that suit your life, suit your passion, suit who
Yes.
you are, and you can live in your truth and in your authenticity. So
And you get to
thank you
do
for
it
doing that.
on your own terms. And that's so
Yes.
beautiful. It's your turn now. So shine
Yes.
And
as brightly as you want to.
And Heather and I don't go anywhere. We
No.
don't just have your story on here and
Yeah.
you think that that's the end of us or whatever. No, we are permanent fixtures within your life now.
Good.
We will check on you. We will be
Yep.
Auntie Jez and Auntie Heather, and we will be there. Say, hey, how are you
Yep.
doing? How's your son? How's
Yes.
your fiance? What's going on? Are you okay today?
You're
All
never
right.
And
alone
we
when
will
you're with
love you to
us.
death. So thank you.
So thank you again. Everybody have a great day today.
Thank you so much.
If I drown, would you pull me back to you?
Religion has many victims, and these are the stories of how they survived.
The preceding podcast is solely owned by the host or hosts and is distributed by Big Media LLC. Copyright 2026.